Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with random reviews from the Overflow room. And now we're back with Ives, because if you were watching these videos in order, you'll realize that our second Ives video, we found the rest of the J's. There's only 3 discs, but yeah, I mean, really important letter J stuff. Paul Jacobs, Gordon Jacob, and Stephen Jaffe. So I'm very happy that we were able to cover them. But now we're back to good old Charlie Ives. Thank God, yes. And oh, there's this fabulous disc from the Fischer-Dieskau edition, a wonderful collection of Ives songs. I mean, this is really quite the disc, actually. It's Fischer-Dieskau doesn't do German stuff. It's French stuff and Ives. It's Debussy's Ballade de François Villon, Ravel's Chanson Maracas, which is kind of strange, being sung by a baritone, the 5 Mélodies Populaires Grecques, and Don Quixote à Dulcinea, Ravel's last completed work. And then you get a big pile of Ives songs. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 Ives songs, including the ones he wrote in German. He did write songs in German. In fact, some of the same ones that Brahms did. Ich grolle nicht, for example. Feldeinsamkeit. Yeah, we know Feldeinsamkeit, loneliness in the field, you know. Weil auf mir, and some other things like that. But the rest are in English, and they're in very good English. He sings in excellent English. His diction was always impeccable. Absolutely fantastic. Now, I've been seeing in the comments, because I used to do, remember Winterreise Wednesdays and things like that we did? Schubert Lieder, people who say things, I don't know, in comment sections, there are just people who say things like, oh, Fischer-Dieskau is the worst singer that ever lived. These people are just morons. You just can't say things like that. You can say, I don't like him. His style didn't appeal to me. But, people just make these moronic proclamations constantly. And then, because they can do it behind their, anonymous screen names. And I wind up deleting thousands of them. It's so tedious. It's wonderful that Fischer-Dieskau addressed this repertoire, and he did it splendidly. He really did. He sounds like himself, like any other great lieder singer doing great lieder, because Ives was a great songwriter. And he published 114 songs, on his own nickel, and they represent a range of musical styles and types that like no other composer attempted. They're wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. So, and then he wrote a whole introduction, which is quite splendid, about how some songs can't be sung. They can't. And, songs have a right to their own existence, whether or not you're able to sing them. And it's a whole, wonderful thing like that. Anyway, so it's Fischer-Dieskau with Karl Engel, Michael Ponty, R.L. Nicolai flute, and Irmgard Poppin cello. That's in some of the Ravel stuff. Fabulous. Just a fabulous disc, and a rarity in the Fischer-Dieskau discography. It really deserves to be better known, and he deserves full credit for doing that repertoire. Ives Symphonies and Orchestral Sets 1 and 2. This is the Decca Double, which I have about 300 copies of. You've got Symphony Number 1 with Zubin Mehta and the LA Phil with cuts in the finale, which takes it completely out of the running. The 4th Symphony with Dochnani and Cleveland, which is fabulous. Same thing with Orchestral Set Number 2, which is fabulous. Symphony Number 2 is Zubin Mehta. Well, that one's better. That's definitely better. It's a decent performance. The 3rd is with the Neville Mariner Academy of St. Martin in the Fields. A fantastic performance of that. And Orchestral Set Number 1, again with Dochnani and Cleveland. So aside from the 1st Symphony, this is really worth having, because all the performances are outstanding, except for that. And, which is why I keep it around. Then we've got, Naxos, which has done an extraordinary amount of Ives, dedicated a series of Ives recordings, including with James Sinclair, who runs the good old Ives Stiftung, or whatever it's called, at Yale. And he's a terrific Ives conductor and theoretical completion guy. He patches everything up and makes it performable. So here we've got these string quartets. String Quartet number 1. Well, it now has a nickname, From the Salvation Army. Didn't need that, but it's got one. 1896. It's a fun piece. It's early Ives, but it uses all those folk tunes and things. They've yet to go completely crazy. Listening to early Ives is like looking at early, what was his name? The crazy painter who wound up just doing, the Dutch guy who wound up just doing lines. And you look at his early work and you see they're like portraits and normal things, but then the lines begin to interrupt and it becomes more abstract and stranger. And what's his name? Begins with an M. Anyway, it'll come to mind. Then we have the Scherzo, which is a minute and 42 seconds, no one cares about. And the Second String Quartet, which is a masterpiece. Really a masterpiece in 3 movements marked discussions, arguments, and then the call of the mountains. The Blair String Quartet, they're in Vanderbilt University in Nashville. It's a fine group, and they play extremely well. Mondrian, thank you. There's the guy, Mondrian. I got it before you did. So the Ives quartets are great, but it's like Mondrian. You watch the stylistic evolution. It happens very quickly. From his early stuff where the influence begins and then it all fragments in interesting ways. This is one of the great Ives recordings ever made. Leonard Slatkin of the St. Louis Symphony. You got 3 places in New England. March 3 with the air Old Kentucky Home. The Unanswered Question, Central Park in the Dark. The Fugue in 4 keys on The Shining Shore. And the Third Symphony. It's impossible to do it better. It really is. Very, very well recorded. I still think we need a big Slatkin box. I know that there was a digital issue of all the Slatkin recordings on RCA, but we need a Slatkin box. And now that RCA, BMG, Sony, whatever it is out in the woods somewhere, it's probably never going to happen. And it would be a crime. What a legacy this is, Slatkin's St. Louis stuff. And his Ives was tremendous. Absolutely tremendous. Symphony number 1, Orchestral Suite number 2, Morton Gould and the Chicago Symphony. Morton Gould's RCA records, his legacy also needs a box because it's so interesting. There's standard classics, there's tons of Americana, there's pop music arrangements, remember jungle drums and all that stuff. There's so much, it would be so much fun. It's such a wildly eclectic pile of things. But again, okay, I can just lament. So you've got that. You also have the Unanswered Question and the Robert Browning Overture and Orchestral Suite number 2. Now, this is Classical Navigator, which was a budget RCA series that was sort of imported somehow. This is number 92. There were a lot of them. None of them were remastered. Some of them didn't sound very good because they needed to be remastered. But these are important performances. And it was exciting when this stuff came out because you just weren't going to get it any other way. There wasn't a lot of choice. Now there's much more. Then we've got the DG Originals release of Ives' 3 Places in New England with Carl Ruggles' Sun Treader and Piston Symphony number 2, which was not on the original disc. But these are phenomenal performances of masterpieces. I mean, Sun Treader is that gnarly, crazy, atonal extravaganza. I love it. It's fun to listen to. It's easy to follow, actually. It's just gnarly. 3 Places in New England is, of course, one of the great masterpieces, and it ends with the Housatonic at Stockbridge, which is one of the great miniature tone poems. It's only like 4 minutes long, but it's phenomenal. And it's also a song, by the way, in one of Ives' 114 songs. And the Piston Second Symphony I actually played because I was running the repertoire committee in my local community orchestra, and I wanted us to do it. And the other members of the committee were really very sweet and indulged a lot of my foibles, and they agreed to do it. And it was fun. It was really fun. It's a beautiful work, lovely work. So this is a great disc, one of the classic discs of orchestral Americana. And Tilson Thomas and the Boston Symphony are the perfect exponents of all of this music. This is a great disc. Just a great disc. And that's a good place to give it a rest for now. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. More Ives coming up next.